Hello there! Welcome back to Scratch. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a closer look into the control category. We'll be learning about what its code blocks do and how they fit into programming as a whole. The control category is focused on controlling your other code blocks in various ways. It allows you to change the way your different code blocks interact with each other. You can make blocks loop over and over. You can make blocks send signals to each other. You can even use blocks called if-else blocks to control the very order that your code blocks are executed in. Now, let's get started with some simple programs that show the capabilities of each control code block. First, we'll stop with the top three blocks: wait, repeat, and loop. The wait block will simply wait however many seconds you enter in this bubble before it executes the code blocks below it. We can use this to add a delay to our program. Next, we have the forever loop, which we went over briefly last episode. This block essentially repeats whatever blocks are inside of it forever. If you don't want to repeat something forever, you can use a repeat block. This block allows you to set the amount of times you want something to be looped. Now that we've learned about wait, loop, and repeat blocks, we can make a simple program using them. Feel free to select whatever sprite and background you want and begin the program by placing down a green flag event block. Feel free to pause the video while you get that all set up. For our first simple program using these three blocks, we're going to make the sprite move towards the mouse cursor and then spin around. First, we need to make sure the program keeps going forever, so place a forever loop right under the event block. Next, we need to give some time to move the mouse pointer to the location we want the sprite to go to. To do that, we can use a wait block. So grab the wait block and plop it right into that forever loop. Now that we have that all set up, we need to go into the motion category and get the block that says glide. This block makes our sprite actually move to where the mouse cursor is. Make sure to select mouse pointer from the drop-down menu to tell the sprite that it needs to go to the mouse pointer instead of just some random position. For the final step, we need to make the sprite spin around, but we don't want it to spin around forever, so we need to use a repeat block to specify the amount of times we want the sprite to spin. Grab a repeat block and slide it right under this block, and then click on this bubble and change it from 10 repeats to whatever number you want. I'm going to choose 3. Finally, go back into motion and get one of these turn blocks and change the number in this bubble to 90. Let's click the flag and see what happens. Your program should be doing something like this. Now that we've taken a look at loop, wait, and repeat blocks, we can move on to if and else blocks. These blocks allow you to control the order that things happen in. They let you detect something and then execute code based on what it detected. For example, you could write code that sounds something like this. If the space key is pressed, then move 10 steps. If and else blocks are really good for controlling characters in games. We can use them to detect a key press and make the sprite react accordingly. So for this simple program, let's make our sprite move around with the arrow keys and say, "I'm standing still," when it's not moving. Start by, of course, grabbing the green flag event block and then place an if-else block right underneath it, the one that looks like this. As you can see, this block is split into a top half and a bottom half. We're going to focus on the top half for now. The top half is the if part of the if-else block. This is the part that will do most of the actual work. In order to detect if the arrow key was pressed, we need to go into the sensing category and grab this block that says key pressed. This block will tell the if block when the arrow key is pressed. Just select right arrow from this drop-down menu. Now that our if block can sense when the right arrow key is pressed, we need to tell it what to do when that key is pressed. So we're going to go to the motion category and grab a move 10 steps block to make our sprite move, and a point and direction block to make our sprite look in the right direction. If you click the flag, you'll see that either nothing happens or your sprite only moves once. As always, we need to put all of our code in a forever loop so that it will run more than just once. Your code should look like this. Now it's a good time to put a set rotation style block above the forever loop, but not inside of it. to make sure that our sprite knows to only turn left and right. Next, we need to do the same thing that we just did, but for the left arrow key. A shortcut we can use is to right-click on the if-else block and press duplicate, just like this. This makes an exact copy of our previous code block and saves a lot of time. Put that duplicated block into the else portion of our first block. Okay, now take a second to make sure your code looks just like mine, because this is where it gets a little complicated. Alright, now we need to change the sensing block to left arrow instead of right arrow. Then we need to make the sprite turn left instead of right. So click on this bubble and drag this arrow to make it point left. You'll note you've done it right when it says -90 or -90 in this bubble. Now, test out your program and the sprite should be moving and turning left and right when you press the arrow keys. For the final step, we want our sprite to say, "I'm standing still," when it's not moving. To do that, go into the looks category and get a save for 2 seconds block. Drop that block right here, click on this bubble, and change the text to "I'm standing still," or really whatever you want. Then change this bubble to 0. Now our program is fully finished, but I know that it probably looks a little complicated, so I'll walk you through what it does. Essentially, the first if block is detecting whether the right arrow key is pressed, and if it's not, it goes to the else portion, which then detects if the left arrow key is pressed, and if it's not, then it knows that neither key is being pressed, so it says, "I'm standing still." That was a lot of coding. Feel free to pause the video and take a quick break, because we've still got one more block to cover in the control category. Okay, now make sure to place an event block and pick whatever sprite and background you want while we get started on our next and final program. Okay, the final block we need to look at for this episode is the repeat until block. This block is essentially a combination of an if block and a repeat block. It will continuously repeat whatever code blocks are inside of it until it detects something. To demonstrate this, we're going to make a very simple program that will just make a sprite continuously move to random positions until any key is pressed. So let's start by grabbing a repeat until block from the control category and place it right under the event block. Next, get a when key pressed block from the sensing category and place it in this slot. Make sure to select any from the drop-down menu like this. Lastly, grab a glide to random position block from the motion category to make our sprite move around the screen randomly. There you go! Click the flag and you should see your sprite moving around. Then, when you press any key, the sprite should stop. You might have to hold the key down for a second or two though, it's just a weird glitch with Scratch. Okay. Well, that's all for this episode. Hopefully now you have a better understanding of the control category and what its blocks can do. I encourage you to experiment with the blocks from the control category and try to make your own programs with them. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.